I'm honored to be here in Dumaguete, and we got the great Paul. I mean, I gotta tell you, he is the guy.
Oh, stop it.
He's the guy who sort of changed my life, and let me be specific about that. Now, Paul made one specific video, and this video, if I can find it, I'm going to link it below. But this video was the story of Paul's life. Okay, and I watched, well, it was a pretty long vid. I watched the entire thing. And number one, he told the story very well. Number two, it was an interesting story. And it was kind of like the laborer's kind of story, you know? Like he just had that kind of uneventful life. Well, it was full of events, but not really the type of events that you want, you know? Not it was not paradise. But he got through it, and he ended up in paradise. Anyway, I don't have to introduce the guy. I mean, you already know this guy. So basically,
you're already sick of this guy.
Yeah, well, yeah. Paul, I want to talk about your life. Like, okay, just some things that I'm curious about, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay. So number one, like, where were you born?
I was born in L.A., Los Angeles, California.
Okay.
Actually, Hollywood, but yeah.
Okay, so you went through school. Were your parents together or divorced?
Parents were together until I turned 18, and then they divorced.
Okay, and so did you care?
Well, it was a brutal upbringing. It wasn't fun. My mother, just to be candid with you, was a knee-walking drunk and a mean one and an alcoholic extraordinaire. And so it was always uncomfortable coming home. My entire life, I dread coming home from school. And spent many a summer in Coronado Island because there was this lovely couple called the Sanders who saw my situation. I went to school with their son. And so they would take me for the summer. And I would spend my summers on Coronado Island when I was like 11, 12, 13 years old.
Interesting.
And so that was that. And then I gutted it out till I was 18. And then as soon as I was legal, out I went into the world.
Well, you gutted it out. Your dad gutted it out, too.
My dad gutted it out, and I wanted out early. My sister left at 15 and went her way. She'd had enough. And I gutted it out till 18. And that's when I could work and do all those other kind of things.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, no, I just want to that. I got the similar story, except for the drunk thing. My mother was a hell of a great nagger, right? And so I always found every excuse in the book not to come home. And when I did come home, I tried to sneak in so she didn't hear me. It was that kind of thing, because I knew as soon as she knew I was there, it was going to be nag about everything she could possibly. But she was not a drunk, so you had to put up with the drunk thing, and so did your dad.
Yeah.
And so when they divorced, did you see a difference? Did your dad feel free?
That's a good question. My dad was struggling a lot after the divorce because the divorce was so expensive. Everything he had worked for, and he'd been fairly successful. She just lawyered him into the ground. One of those. And both of them got nothing out of the deal. But the lawyers, they did. And so I sort of watched that from afar because that happened after I left the house. And my dad was living in a little tiny apartment for a while. But the good news is he's now living in a private community in La Quinta, California. So
he's still going.
He's made his comeback.
Wow.
And he's going to be 99 in March. Wow. And he's still rocking and rolling.
Amazing.
Yeah.
99.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, this March he'll be 99.
Amazing.
And I went back and visited him with him on his 97th birthday. I made a trip home to go celebrate with him.
Is that the one it was on video?
Yeah.
Yeah, you showed your dad.
Yeah,
okay.
I did a video with my father.
He seems okay.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's a good guy.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, these women folk, I'll tell you, I mean, we all got our experience with the women folk, but...
the ladies.
Hey, some guys, they find the beauty, the gem. They find the gem that we all aspire to have. But the thing is, you put a ring on the finger as you are supposed to. But what happens after that? I mean, it's entirely up to her. You know, sometimes these sometimes they got something going in the back of their minds where you don't know, but they know what's going to happen. But anyway, I won't get into that. We all know what I'm talking about. But Paul, So you're 18. Okay,
Yeah.
you're 18, but
Yeah.
there's only one problem, Paul.
What's that?
You need some bones, Paul. You have no cash in your wallet, my
That's
goodness.
right.
Okay.
That's right.
So what was the first job you got?
I worked at Gallon Camp Shoes
And what were you doing?
in the Northridge Fashion Show Mall. This is where I grew up. And I worked there for 2 years. And it was the best paying job in the whole mall for some reason. I don't know why, but they paid like $1 an hour more. And I think minimum wage back then was $2 or something like that. So I was getting $3. And I was getting time and a half on Sundays. So I had an apartment that I shared with a friend, and I had a 76 Chevy Monte Carlo, still the nicest car I've ever owned in my life. And I had change in my pocket at the end of the month. I didn't know how good I had it. And I worked at the shoe store, and we would stock boxes, and we would sell shoes, and we would clean the rack. And it was just a typical mall rat job.
So
But I did it for 2 years straight.
Very good. So you were selling shoes.
Yeah.
Okay, and you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So why did you leave?
Why did I leave? I picked up another job down in Long Beach driving a forklift, and that paid more money. And they also wanted me to, believe it or not, I was 20 years old. The guy that owned it liked my creativity, and so I would write ads for him, and along with working in the warehouse. And he liked my ads so much that he actually volunteered to make my car payment along with my salary. But that was hush-hush because there were the other guys that were driving forklifts were allowed to know.
Why were you good at writing ads suddenly?
I was always good at creative writing in school. That was just sort of like if I had a talent, that was it. So they would I can remember the teacher would put a picture on a wall and she'd say, okay, write something about this. And I would write something totally different than everybody else wrote. And she loved it because I looked at it from a different angle.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were naturally thinking outside the box from a young age.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you went from shoes to forklifts. So how long were you at the forklift job?
That's another 2 years that I was there. I tried to start my own business. That failed completely. And I was sitting in my apartment and I was looking for a job in the early 80s. And I opened up the want ads and I couldn't find anything that appealed to me. They all wanted telemarketers back at the time. And these were the kind of, I only had a high school degree, so I didn't qualify for a lot of jobs. And then they said, we will pay you, there was an ad, $200 to go to school to learn how to sell cars.
Wow.
And all we ask that you do is work 1 month, and then you can quit if you don't like it. And I just so happened to need $200 to pay my rent that month. So I said, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go take this goofy class. I'll go through the class. I'll go to the store, and I'll hang out, and then I'll take it from there. And so I went to the car dealer, and I went to the class. I got my $200. I paid my rent. I went out and bought a couple of cheap ties and went to work. And 30 years later, I was still in that business.
Okay. Let's start. Let's talk about when you first got that. You're 22 when you first got that car job, right?
About that, 22,
So what was
23.
happening girl-wise when you were 22 at this time?
I was dating like crazy. I was dating a lot of different girls. I was I don't want to say promiscuous, but I was very active at that time.
Okay, very good. But then, so 22, you started the car job, and then how old were you when you got married?
I was 30.
Oh, 30.
Yeah.
So you're well into your car
yeah.
job.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You were selling
yeah.
cars for 8 years.
Yeah, well, I didn't sell cars for 8 years. I sold cars for 2 years. And then they had this contest at work where it was called a walk-around. And they said, you need to do a walk-around. In other words, take you as a customer. Nobody is there but the other employees. And show the benefits of buying this car. And learn how to ask a customer what their needs, their wants, and all that are. And discern that. So it was my turn. I had to do this walk around on the car. And the finance director was upstairs. It was a 2-story building. And he watched my walk around. And at the end of it, he came to me and he said, you need to be the #1 salesman next month because I want you in my department, in the finance department. And so that was the rule. You could not get promoted where I worked. I'll leave the name of the dealership out of it. Unless you were the top salesman. And it took me 2 or 3 months. And then one month I had this magical month where everybody I talked to said, sure. And they bought a car. And I was the number one salesman in the store. And the next week I was in the finance department. And they trained me there. And that was my ticket to a lot better money.
Okay, and how old were you at this time?
Mid-20s.
Wow, that's pretty young.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're still single,
Oh, yeah.
still dating.
Yeah.
So you're making good money. So life is pretty good.
Yeah.
You got
Life was fun.
you got your own apartment at this time,
I did.
and you're still in L.A.
Still in California. Yeah.
Okay. And so, how many years? 5 years later. Okay, you're making good money. You're dating, but then it all ends because you decide that hey, it's time to get married.
Well, I didn't really decide that.
Okay.
I was dating someone who got pregnant, and we were not compatible. We were not right for one another, and yet I wanted to do the right thing, so we got married. And I wanted to give my son a name, my last name, and then immediately after my son was born, without all the gory details, the wife went to Nevada, where she's originally from, and filed for divorce and made my son a ward of Nevada, which meant if I wanted to ever see my son again, I had to drop my life in California and start all over again from ground zero in Nevada. So that's what I did.
Okay, but did she do this because she wanted to live in Nevada, or was it just sort of something against you?
Both.
Okay. So was her hometown Nevada?
Yeah.
Okay, so now she's in Nevada, and you got to drop everything, your good job, everything. You got to live
history.
in Nevada if you want to see your son.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Or if I want to have any legal rights or custody.
Okay.
That was the law.
So it's weird. She was able to do that without your signature.
Well,
just by herself.
Yeah, I don't pretend to understand it.
Okay.
I knew that she was gone for 30 days. She had taken 2 or 3 trips before, go back to see her mother with the baby. And the last trip that she took, she kept stalling. Because this had all been predetermined. She was doing groundbreaking work on those trips before to find out what to do, talking to a lawyer. Her mother was backing her up on all this stuff. So that was, I got divorce papers in the mail.
Good.
And I was told, I called an attorney, and he says, yeah, bud, you got no rights here in California. You're going to have to go to Nevada. And so I had to move to Las Vegas, which I didn't want to do.
Okay. Were you suspicious when she was going away?
No.
No, you were just enjoying your free
You
time.
know what? I'm just naive, I guess.
Okay.
I don't do a lot of lying or conniving or backstabbing or any of that sort of stuff. But so it's hard for me to imagine anybody else doing it.
Right.
But when they're doing it, I'm just kind of blinded to it. I should be tougher skinned that way. As I've aged, I've learned to smell it out a little bit better.
Okay.
But back then, it was just, I thought we were going to be one big happy family. We would work through our problems, and we've got this kid, and he's the catalyst, and he's a beautiful boy, and I just want, who wouldn't want me? I was working, I was bringing home good money, I was faithful, I was nice, and days off, we went on trips, but that's not what you want.
So you're at this time. You must be.
I feel like I'm in therapy.
You're 32 at this time.
Yeah.
About 32, early 30s, and you're
yeah.
going through this hard time now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, we make it through that. I go to Vegas. I have to go through all kinds of hoops to get reestablished. That took about 4 or 5 months. I did get reestablished. I did get custody. I did get legal custody. She actually got in some trouble, and I got full custody after a period of time, which is blurry to me. I met another woman, and she kind of, I guess I was weak and vulnerable and feeling alone and didn't have a mother figure or a wife figure in the house. And I married her, which was impulsive.
How old are you at this time?
Again, 32, 33, something like that.
Okay.
I was only alone for about a year.
Okay.
And then she turned out to be a born-again psycho.
Okay.
But, that's what happens when you move fast and you don't investigate and get to know.
So, so she's a psycho, but then why did you marry her?
Because she didn't act like a psycho when I was dating her.
Okay, so
she
again,
had
ring goes
actually
on the finger.
been married 3 times before me and didn't tell me that.
Oh.
And so bipolar people, which is what she's diagnosed with, have a way of maintaining this level of stability. And then once they kind of get what they want, bang, out comes the real monster. And I'm not ex-wife bashing here. I'm bashing myself. It's my mistake. I didn't vet this person properly. I had an agenda. She really wasn't the perfect gal for me, but I thought it would be great for my son. I was trying to do the right thing and give him a stable home, and it turned out to be anything but that.
Okay. You mean right for your son because now there's a woman in the house?
Yeah, and she could stay with him, and while we were dating, she was always like just lovey-dovey with him and this and that, and her attitude changed as far as that went. And again, I don't want to get into the most personal stuff for her because she's got her life now, and that's that. I got to respect that. But yeah, so it was an uncomfortable time at best.
Okay, so
And we stayed married for 9 years, and then I had reasons to divorce her, so I did. And during the 9 years we were together, we adopted 2 other kids, and now I had 3 mouths plus her. And so I spent most of my time just going back and forth to work, and going back and forth to work and making ends meet, trying to keep everybody appeased, and ended up keeping nobody appeased.
but you were in finance in California. You had
Yeah.
a prime job. Now
Yeah.
you went to Nevada. What I'm wondering is, at this time now, you're going back and forth to work, trying to keep the family together. But what was your job now?
Finance.
Oh, you went right into finance?
I didn't. I couldn't find an F&I gig for lower money for about 3 months, so I did go right back and went to sell cars.
Oh, back home in California.
No, this is Nevada.
Okay.
We're still in Nevada. I've moved to Nevada. I
Okay.
shined it on. I wasn't going back and forth. So I went to work in Nevada, and I took a job at this store, didn't like it. Took a job at that store, didn't like it. Took a job at this store, didn't like it. And just through the grapevine, they said, hey, if you go over to this place, they're hiring an F&I guy. And so I went over there and I applied, and I showed him my resume and did my thing, and he hired me. And that was that. I stayed at that store for 18 years.
Dang. You're the rest of your career,
Yeah.
basically.
Pretty much.
Okay. But when you did get divorced the second time, how old are you? You're about 45.
Yeah.
You're my age.
Yeah.
You're getting
Yeah.
divorced for the second time.
Yeah.
Now you got 3 kids.
Yeah.
But now you're divorced. So what is your life like post-divorce there in Nevada?
Okay, it's the same. It was a little more amicable with the second wife as far as the kids back and forth. And so I was able to take them on my day off. We were both very flexible with each other as far as taking care of the kids, getting them to school. And pretty much my life revolved around the kids and work. And that was it. No social life, no dating. I'd given up on that whole thing. I said, forget it. Obviously, I don't know how to pick a woman. So why go the third time? So I just stayed alone and stayed with my kids and my 2 dogs. And that was my life.
Okay.
And eventually they grew up and were out on their own.
Okay. So from 45 to you retired at 62.
Yeah.
You were in finance.
Yep.
And your life was pretty much the same.
Yep.
Your entire 50s into 60. So can you talk about like a typical day? Was it just wake up, go to work, come home, watch TV, go to sleep?
You pretty much got it.
Wow. Okay. And then you had the kids on the weekend, or?
I had the kids whenever the kids needed to be with me.
Okay.
And so my work schedule would be not just every weekend off. We were always off on Sunday because we closed, and then I'd have a day during the week. And then I'd have an early day where I'd get off at 2 o'clock. And so maybe after 2 o'clock, I'd run by and pick up the kids and keep them for the night. That kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So eventually, one day goes by, 1 week goes by, 1 year goes by. You're 62 years old, Paul.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what happened? You get, without the details, you start getting the Social Security check.
No.
No.
No. Yes and no.
Okay.
Finally the kids were exported, if you will. They reached 18, 19, 20, and they were all off on 3 different directions, 3 different personalities doing 3 different things. So I was alone. And I was alone for about 7, 8 years, living in the same house, this big house that I bought for the kids and the wife and everything. And I just sort of, I liked being alone. I liked not having any drama, and I went drama free at that point. because nothing was being injected unless I created the drama. And every blue moon, I would go ahead and create some drama for myself because I was on a pity party for some reason. But other than that, everything just bounced along. But I was bored out of my skull. And so I knew that I was going to retire out of the country. I had visited Asia back in 2005 during one of my breaks. That hooked me when I went in 2005. I went back in 2009 and revisited Asia. And that just set the hook. So I said, okay, I'm not going to stay in America when I retire. I'm going to come here to Southeast Asia. I was thinking Thailand initially. And then a couple of 3 years before I retired, I started to YouTube and Google best places to retire. And that was how I decided to come here.
Okay.
And so the day that I turned 62, I was sitting on the bench outside of the office on my 62nd birthday, filing for my Social Security, and got that lined up. I continued to work for a couple of more months while the checks came in. I wanted to make sure the checks were coming in and smoothing. I made sure I set up money transfers. I listened to a lot of bloggers like Rike and those guys, and I took their advice, and I set myself up so that when I came over here, I would have as few road bumps as possible. And so it worked. I had money saved up as a safety net. I had money in my pocket. I could transfer my money over here safely and securely. And now it was just a matter of getting settled in.
Okay, I'm wondering, 2005, you were about 50 years old.
Yes,
Okay.
55, I think. I was 55.
55, and you went to Asia. Where in Asia?
Phuket, Thailand.
Okay, so you went to Phuket, Thailand. How long were you there for?
I went for a week and stayed for a month.
Oh, okay.
I had actually left the car business. Thing I left out, and I went into real estate. I got my real estate license. So I was loving it, and I was just enjoying the hell out of it. I was making half as much money, but I was living 5 times as much. I enjoyed the freedom. I didn't have to show up. I didn't have to go to a meeting. I didn't have to do this. I didn't have to do that. It took me about a year to figure out the real estate business, and I started having some success at that. And the cool thing about real estate is if you don't have any listings and you don't have any potential clients, it's a great time for a vacation, especially if you just closed a sale, which I had done, and it put some money in my pocket. So my friend who was in Thailand, who I had worked with at the dealership, he was an F&I guy, and he was over there, and he said, come join me. He says, you need a break. I know what you've been through. He witnessed my life. He says, and he's my best friend today. And he said, come on over and hang out with me for a while, man. You can stay at my place. Just buy the plane ticket. So I booked the ticket for round trip for a week stay. And I kept, back then it was easy to do. I kept extending the ticket out longer and longer and longer. I didn't want to come back. I didn't want to leave. But eventually I had to come back and go back to work. But that month that I was there, I saw another side of the world that I never would have known existed had he not have invited me to come over there.
Okay, so in 2005, when you're in Phuket there,
Yeah.
and it was too early for you to retire.
Yeah.
But is that when you got the idea to
dude.
retire?
That was not to retire, but where to retire.
Right.
It was the seed had been planted, and I went back 4 years later to reinforce my thinking, and spent a considerable amount of time there in 2009, and it just validated everything that I thought. I said, yeah, this is it. I love my country. I love America. I have nothing against it. But as far as a day-to-day lifestyle for as you get older, there's just less and less opportunities for anything. Money, jobs, careers, romance. And so I saw the cost of living over here. I saw the lifestyle, the people. It was much more adventurous. It was really green. We're looking around here. It's super green. And I love that. And where I was living was in the desert, which is like, ugh.
Mm.
So I just fell in love with everything. I fell in love with the topography, the people, the vibe, the cost of living. And I just said, you know what? This is where it's going to be. And then I flipped from Thailand to the Philippines after doing all my little YouTube searches. I settled on Philippines because of English, visas, and I figured, hey, if I get here and I don't like it, I can go bounce back into Thailand and see if that's better. I like it or not. But I ended up here, and I ended up staying here.
Okay, the 2009 trip to Thailand, how long was it?
11 months.
Wow.
Well, it was a point where everything, this is a fun point. I try to avoid this because it's just such a negative thing to say. But I had worked all those years to build up. I had the American dream. I bought the house, and the house was appreciating at an unbelievable rate and was worth a lot of money, along with my 401k. And when the recession came and the foreclosure crash came, it was like you took everything that I owned, here's everything I own, and just tossed it out into the middle of the ocean. And I had bupkis, lost everything, the whole enchilada. And I said, I had like my father gave me $6,000. He says, I'm going to give you an early inheritance. He says, I know what kind of, like my friend, he says, I've been watching you a little bit, and you've been through some real stuff here, Paul, and you need a break or you're going to die. So why don't you take this money? I know you love it over there in Thailand. Why don't you take your ass over there and relax? And I said, thanks, Dad. And I went. And I managed to take $6,000 and make it stretch for 10 or 11 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I lived small.
Okay.
And I ate once a day. And I got involved with a church over there. And I really made some great Thai friends who spoke great English.
Okay.
And I was involved in their community. And it wasn't me bar hopping or chasing women or doing all the usual stuff you associate with Thailand. It was just me kind of existing, but coexisting.
So 2000, it's 11 months you're there, and then
Yeah.
when you went home,
Yeah.
did you feel it's time to go home, or did you just have to go home?
No, I just ran out of money.
Wow. Okay, but
I'd still be there today if I had endless supply of money.
2009 you went home and you got back into real
Yeah,
estate,
I came back.
and that kept you going.
I did. I
until
worked for
you're
my
60.
father. My father's a broker, so I got relicensed in California. I had been licensed in Nevada, so I came back. I stayed with my sister. I got my real estate license to work for my father. I worked for him for a year, and then I went back to Vegas, and because I was making more money in the car business, so I went back to Vegas for a couple, 3 years, and just gutted that out. And the business I learned to detest, but I stuck it out. And I just kept telling myself every day, Paul, you're one day closer. You're 1 week closer. You're 1 month closer. Because I was burnt beyond being burnt. Burnt out on work, burnt out on life, burnt out on women, burnt out on, just everything. Losing everything. That was devastating.
But you survived to 62.
I did.
You did.
I did.
Okay, and then
And the only way I survived, Scotty, I sound like an AA meeting, but I did it one day at a time.
okay.
Every day I woke up and I said, oh, I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm sick and tired of it. I've had it up to here with it. But you know what? If I can see that, I just kept thinking about that trip. That 2005, 2009. I kept saying, that's your future, Paul, not this. This is just your present. You just got to gut it out, man. It's like waiting to turn to you're 21. You're going to go to a bar for the first time because you're legally aged to drink. Same thing. Just gut it out. Just give it a few years.
Okay, but the day did come.
The day came.
Okay,
and like I
62.
said, I was parked in front of Social Security on that day. I filed, and when I got 2 Social Security checks, I knew that they were coming.
Yep.
I was paranoid that something would go wrong.
Yep.
And I kept working because you were allowed to, and I saved up my money like the guys on YouTube told me, have a safety net. And I came here with some cash in my pocket, and I came over here and set up camp, and that's been that.
Okay, so you came and you settled in the Philippines.
Yeah.
It was a preliminary trip. You were going to go over to Thailand, but you loved the Philippines.
It wasn't really preliminary. It was, I guess you could call it preliminary. I gave myself 6 months. I said, hell or high water, I'm going to stay in the Philippines, wherever it might be, for 6 months. And either I like it or I don't. And here's my options. I have enough money set aside that I can do one of 2 things. I can fly to another country, Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, whatever I see on media and can research again if I don't like it here. And worst case scenario, I could just fly back to America and start the rat race all over again. Why, that would just be I can say I tried. I can say, well, I came and I gave it 6 months and I tried. And I don't like it, so I'm going to go home to America, or I'm going to go over here, or I'm going to go over there. But it turned out that on 6 months and 1 day, I bought my scooter. That was my commitment, my financial commitment. I said, yes, I'm staying here. So I spent $1,600 or whatever it was to buy my first scooter.
Okay. Now, what was your? Did you have a goal, female-wise? Now that you're here in the Philippines, it's known for the beautiful girls, and here you are, a single guy,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
A lot of girls around.
Yep.
Now, I assume you were interested in dating. You weren't necessarily interested in marriage.
I wasn't necessarily interested in dating when I initially got here. People will call bullshit on this because they say, oh, everybody comes for the women. Well, that's just not my case. And I know it's not the case for a number of guys. I came here for financial freedom. I did not want to show up at work anymore. I wanted to know that I could live within my means. That's rent, food, all the necessities to get through the month, and have a little money left over. To me, that was the ultimate freedom.
Okay.
Being able to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, where I want to go. So no, like you and I were talking earlier, when you have a woman with you, it's 2 hamburgers instead of 1. And so that changes that dynamic. So I was pretty much hell-bent on staying single when I first got here. And I managed to do that for 2.5 years.
And so you were 2.5 years, and that's
Yep.
when you met your future wife.
Yes.
Okay. And would
Yeah.
you mind just last story here? How
Yeah,
did
sure.
you meet your wife?
We were introduced. I was the third wheel. My friend and his girlfriend went out to dinner, and they invited me to come along to join them for dinner. And his girlfriend, of course, the typical question is, who are you, where are you from, what you do, because she'd never met me before. And she said, do you have a girlfriend? And I said, no, I don't have a girlfriend. And why don't you have a girlfriend? I said, well, I haven't met anybody I like. And she says, well, I know somebody, and I think you might like her. I said, okay, cool. And so we changed Facebooks or something like that. I can't remember exactly how. And I think May actually sent me the first message. And then we talked for about a week or so on Facebook. And then she took a bus down from her hometown, which is Chaton. And that was that. We dated for 6 months. And then we cohabitated. And we cohabitated for 4 years. And then we were engaged for a year. And then this year we got married.
Okay. And so recently you purchased some land, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
that was the dream of, you wanted to help your wife because, hey, are you going to be alive forever?
Well, I can't talk about being here next week, but I always call my wife my project. And it's kind of fun in a way because I think the key to a successful relationship is trying to give that person more than you take. And I feel that's the way that my wife treats me. I think she gives me more than I take from her. And I think conversely, I give her more than I take. And I just think that's an awesome dynamic that we share. Did I date other women between her and me landing at the airport? Yes. Was there a high body count? No. It was just mostly friend zone stuff and going out and having fun. But when I met her, I just saw something unique in her. And so I call her my project because we spent 3 days opening up a checking account. She would never dream that she would need a bank for anything because she never made more than 200 or 300 pesos a day and ended up spending it. And she worked as a housemaid at the age of 15 for 10 years in Manila. So she didn't have any real life or dating life or anything in her 20s or teens. And so she was very naive when I met her. But she just had a quality about her that I just adore. Still, and to this day, I adore it. I feel the same way about her today as I did when I first met her.
Wow.
And I've never been able to say that about any woman, ever. So, checking account, passport, driver's license, taking her out of the country for the first time. I bought her own scooter a couple of years ago. We purchased a car together a year ago. And then I just recently bought a piece of land. And she signed off on it, and she owns it. I'm a leasee on it for 25 years or something like that. But I don't care. I just want it. If I leave the planet tomorrow, I want to leave her in better shape than I found her. So I think a checking account, an income stream, because she's got a little YouTube channel, so she makes a couple bucks. Checking account, YouTube channel, driver's license, car, motorbike, land. If I died tomorrow, she'd be cool.
Well, there's one last thing. So you've had a hell of a life. You have had a hell of a life, but I just got one question. Are you at peace now?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I am so happy that all of this happened now. I look back on it and I say, you know what? I think of that song by Bruce Springsteen called Glory Days, whereas the guys were the big stars and they had everything going for them, and they caught the touchdown pass at the big game, and they were the hero of the day. And then 30 years later, they're sitting in the bar after working in the factory in the same small town, and they're talking about glory days, drinking their beers and going home and back and forth. Well, I never had any glory days when I was younger, but now at this stage of the game, on my way out, I'm going out on top in my mind. And I could die tomorrow, and I'd be a happy guy. I'm not afraid of death. I'm not afraid. I'm a believer. I'm a Christian, so that doesn't bother me at all. And my goal is just to keep on keeping on and do what I do and enjoy it. And I have very few bad days here, where almost every day in America was a bad day. It's just, I don't know. I'll leave it at that.
Well, I got one more question for you.
Sure, you can have two more.
Okay. Now, is your plan to stay in the Philippines for the rest of your life?
That's a great question. The reason I bought the land is that I know that my wife will always call this home, no matter where we go. And so I want her, hopefully, we'll be able to recoup from the purchase of the land. We're going to have to wait at least a year to save up more money to begin any kind of building project. The land's just going to sit there. But hopefully I can see the completion of that. And I know in my heart of hearts that she's always got a roof over her head. She's got no overhead to speak. She's got transportation. She's familiar with the banking system now. She's familiar with travel, with the passport. But her and I, we could pick up, like we went to Thailand together, and she loved Thailand. If it was up to her, we'd go live there right now. But because of the visas and all that kind of stuff, I don't think so. But we're going to take other trips as time progresses and check it out. One day, maybe possibly, I'll get her into America just to check that out. So my life is open to suggestions and ideas and circumstances.
Okay.
So things just might go to hell in a handbasket here in the Philippines. I don't know. And it's time to boogie, and we got to go. But the reason I did the whole land thing was for her, because that's her little piece of the rock. And even if we don't build on it, eventually her parents or somebody would build on it. They would get something going and make it happen.
Is this land thing, not to be specific, is it here in Shanton?
It's in where the hell is it? Darwin.
Darwin, okay,
Yeah.
which is south of here.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, one last question here, and I promise last
You
question.
said that 5 times now.
Well, it really is this time. Now, I wonder, when you were preparing to come here, this was about 2000 whatever, who were your vloggers that you were?
Oh, easy peasy, man. I watched Bud Brown, I watched Rike, and I watched Ned from Philippine Dreams. He had a great channel. I loved Ned because he was really anal. And so he would go buy a motorbike, but he would just like do all this crazy research. So I knew at the end of the day, if he picked a Click 125, which I think what he bought, that was the bike to buy, because he had done all the research. He had looked at all the bikes. I liked Rike because of his philosophies. And he would talk about, and he would video and say, this is how you get to immigration. this is how you do this. This is how you go there. This is how you get a jeepney. This is how you get a trike. So it was sort of like the nuts and bolts stuff. And then I watched Bud Brown just because I liked Bud Brown. He didn't give any kind of information at all. He just had goofy days, and I just fell in love with his personality and the way that he enjoyed his life. And he would just go do stuff, and I would just sort of go along with him for the ride.
Did you ever watch The Life of Bud Brown? There was a documentary on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, all these guys were in the Dumageddon.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that's why, basically, why you came here.
It is. I back when I was looking for places to stay, I did my research, and back then in Forbes, they ranked. I would research top places to retire in the world on Social Security or on a budget or whatever. You know that Dumageddon was coming up #1.
Wow.
Year after year after year, and it hit Forbes like in 2013, 14, 15 when I was doing my research, and now the Philippines isn't even in the top 10.
What happened?
I don't know. Other places are coming up. A lot of South American places.
Interesting.
I can't explain it. I don't
Does
know why.
Forbes every year have a top 10 place to retire?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay,
I think they do. I mean, I haven't.
Well, they did before, right?
Yeah, they did before. And then there were other sites that you can go to that were credible. And you can go to, I forgot because it's been so long since I've done it. But you can just Google, right now, just go into Google itself and say top 10 places to retire. And you'll get 5 or 6 different, hits on that. And you can click on, if you believe Yahoo or U.S. News Reports or CNN or whatever monthly.
All right. Well, hey,
Yeah.
we've dragged this conversation on. Thank
We
you
have
for
done
the
an
life.
excellent job of stretching this out for a long, long time.
The life of Paul.
Yeah.
The life of, summed up in 40 minutes.
In 40 minutes, that's all my life is worth. 41 crappy minutes.
70 years. How old are you? 60?
69. I'll be 69 next month.
69 years wrapped up in 40 minutes. But
That's
Paul,
pretty good.
thank you so much, okay?
All right, brother.